Neeves Knives, I'm Jared, and we got the Twosun Nautilus here, and I wanted to check this out for a while. Thanks to Ed for letting me check out one of his, man. I thank you very much. And you know, he's been awesome to the channel. I really appreciate all the support he is giving the channel, man. Thank you so much. This is a Jelly Jerry design, and I like Jelly Jerry's designs. Not all of them, but some of them really catch my eye. Some of them are a little futuristic, but there are a few out there that I really like. So since it was a Jelly Jerry design, you know, I seen it, and it does have a futuristic look, but it's not overboard in my opinion, and it still has a great functional look to it. So I really wanted to check this one out for a while. M390 blade steel, beautiful satin finish. It is a flat grind. Titanium frame lock, and you're probably looking at this little disc. So basically it's T8s around the board. If you take out this screw and the pivot, it comes right apart. This little disc, it's basically just an over travel stop. It pops right out. It's not a window or anything. It is titanium still underneath there, but when you take it out, it is basically just an over travel stop, so you don't unspring the lock. But when you take it apart, you realize it has plastic caged ceramic bearings, or ceramic caged bearings, and it has a little washer that goes against the titanium, basically as a racetrack, so they don't cut and groove into the titanium. It basically gives it a steel washer for the ceramic bearings to roll on. And then on the blade, they have a nice good cutout that the ceramic bearings can also roll on, which makes for incredible action. And then they have a detent ramp, internal stop pins. You can see the internal stop pin here going around. It has a little track right here. It goes around and locks up inside that track. Lots of weight relief, and yeah, very, very well built. Twosuns are extremely easy to take apart. I usually consider them the easiest knives to take apart and put back together. The fit and finish is done so well, and the build quality is so good that, you know, it just slaps right back together very easily. I've never had trouble taking apart or putting back together a Twosun. Now, let's get into the action, and then we will get into the ergos and the cutting. So the action, we have flipping action here. Nice heavy detent. Yet, even though it is a heavy detent, you see we have the groove for the reverse flick. It works really good. Both of them work really well. I tend to get my finger down here on the groove. Now, when you use the groove, you usually don't want to go straight on like that, but you can with this. So you can go straight on where you're just basically using the front of your finger. It works just fine. However, I tend to like to use the side of my finger with this kind of groove, and yeah, works great. So you can, the flipping action, you see how high the flipper tab is from the pivot. Nice break in the detent. The detent is nice and strong, nice and heavy, nice and crisp. You're basically doing a light switch because there's no way to push button this. So you are going to do a light switch. Now, the lock bar has plenty of access, and it does have a nice chamfer around the edge, so it's very comfortable to unlock. Detent is slightly late because it lands right there, and then it does have the detent ramp. I wish the detent was right there instead of right here, because I tend to fumble right there. Now, it's also easy to get past. You just pull your finger down. That one I went too far on, but you just pull your finger down a little bit farther and it's past. But it is a little late, but you figure out pretty quick right where it's at, and it's easy to get past. And then the groove on the blade is easy to do a thumb flick with, as long as your fingers are not on the lock bar. And like I said, the reverse flick is also very easy. Like I said, the detent is nice and heavy, but it still works with the groove. Now, when we get into the ergos, so you see how it's got the flipper tab separating it from the choil. So when you hold it back here, it is very comfortable. You do feel like it goes from thicker to thinner, which, because it does, you know, which that's what a hand does anyways. And you have a nice groove up here for your thumb to land on. Nice and comfortable. Very, very comfortable. But then you also have this little spot right there that you can use. And then in other grips, like say for utility cuts, this is a very comfortable grip. The reverse grip is also okay. You can get behind straps and pull them. All the grips are relatively comfortable with this. The scales are flat, but they have this chamfered edge all the way around it. So it does give it somewhat of a contoured feeling, even though it's not. And the clip doesn't bother me at all. Everything's knocked down and rounded really well. So there's really no sharp edges. Even like this front corner right here, you see how it's got a chamfer around the edge. So it feels very, very comfortable in the hand. Now, getting into the cutting performance. Now, the cardboard that I'm going to show in this video is very lightweight cardboard, and I do that, and I use that, well, one, because I got a lot of it, but two, any knife geometry, you'd have to have really, really bad geometry to not be able to cut this cardboard very clean. So, you know, just take that into consideration. But this knife cuts through it really good. I also use it on other cardboard, and yeah, it does have good cutting performance. Now, this one's not as thin as some other Twosun models, but it's not thick. It's a little bit more robust than some other models. Of course, there's going to be, you know, different calipers of geometry and knives, but it's still decent. We're talking about 20 thousandths behind the edge. And the geometry is pretty decent. It cuts really good. And when I say robust, I don't mean the blade is robust. I'm saying it's more robust than 10 thousandths, 15 thousandths behind the edge. But, you know, it does still cut very well. It does pass through materials pretty decent. And you do have good leverage into your cuts that, you know, are nice and comfortable. So, you know, it gets, you know, it's right in the happy medium category where it's going to cut okay for things. Now, you are going to get a little bit of resistance from this, from the fuller. Now, not that big of a deal. You can kind of slide the materials up, you know, the blade kind of at an angle, which you have this groove right here that helps make that material pass over it, especially if you have your thumb in the way right here. You kind of just let it slide over this way. And yeah, it works pretty good. Now, the utility cuts are phenomenal. This is a utility cutting beast. The tip is nice and strong. It does have a, not a robust tip, but an acute tip that also has some durability to it. So you're not going to be really worried about chipping it or breaking it, but it's going to be still acute enough to where it's great for utility cuts. So penetrating and utility cuts, it's going to work great. And like I said before, you do feel very comfortable in the hand doing the utility cuts. If we go back to the handle, you can see how it has this little spot back here that does sit really nice in the hand. So you don't have any hot spots back there. Very comfortable with the utility cuts. So yeah, all the cutting is pretty good. Like I said, the slicing it's not going to be a slicing champion by no means, but it cuts decent. It cuts pretty good. The utility cuts, it's a champion utility cutter though. When we look more into the blade, you can see the sharpening choil and plunge grind. It starts here, ends here. They gave you plenty of life, so they did, or you know, he did leave you you know, quite a few sharpenings before you'll ever hit the plunge grind. I'm definitely happy with that. And like I said, you know, the blade, you know, it does have kind of a futuristic looking blade, but it's still very, very functional. Now the clip, I want to say that Jelly Jerry does some of the best titanium milled clips from Twosun. I've been happy with all of them. This one works extremely well in and out of the pocket. Super smooth. It's a clip that I enjoy using. I enjoy carrying, even though it's not crazy deep carry. doesn't matter. This thing slides in and out of the pocket very well, has good enough tension to hold on to the knife. I like this clip. I enjoy this clip. And like I said, it's so comfortable in the hand that it's a twofold. It works good and it works great in the hand. So very happy with this clip. You know, if we take a look around the knife, you can see it does have a full backspacer. It has a lanyard hole for the lanyard people. We got some weight relief taken out of the outside as well as the inside. The fit and finish is done very well. It is a very, very well done knife. But we do have a couple negatives. One, this flipper tab is pointy as all hell. You can see how pointy it is. Now, when you take this and then add in a strong detent, you know, it's not as bad as you think looking at it because of the leverage you get. It's just kind of like you're just hooking it and yanking down. So it's not really bad. I did think it was a little worse than it is when I first started messing with it. But now that I've gotten used to it, it's not bad at all. I've just kind of learned how to hook it and pull it, but it is pokey though. It is pokey. Now I would say it would have been awesome if they just didn't have a flipper on this at all. Cut the flipper off, cut the flipper completely off, and then make this a spot for your finger, and then take this edge and make it just a little bit sharper. So it still has great reverse flicking. Even if I took off the flipper tab right now, it has plenty good sharpness on this edge, but it does have it is a little rounded. So I'm just saying, if you did do a flipper delete and it was a primarily only reverse flicker, make it just a smidgen sharper. This thing, yeah, this would have been it's really cool the way it is, but it would have been awesome seeing this without a flipper, only a reverse flicker from the fuller. That would have been really cool. But that's not the way it is, and it's got a pokey flipper tab that I'm calling a negative. Now, the next thing is, you know, like I said, the fuller is going to give you a little bit of drawback and, you know, from cutting, which since it is rounded the way it is a little bit better than it would be doing what I said, you know, if it was a little bit sharper. But, you know, you do have the benefits of going over at an angle over this. But any fuller is going to create drag. It's just the way it works. So I'm not saying that that's a really bad thing. I'm just saying it's a drawback. You're going to get a little bit more resistance, especially if you're going through really dense cardboard with a lot of tape. But other than that, man, I mean, this thing is pretty awesome. I do like it quite a bit. I think it's, you know, a great model from them, but there is one other little detail, and I already mentioned it, but that's the detent ball. It's so late. I wish that, you know, they would have just designed it, or I wish he would have designed it where the detent was right there, nice and early, so that it's not fumbling around right there. And then when you mix the detent ramp with that, it makes it where it can sit there and fumble right there. Yes, I can just swing past it if I want to. And I did figure out right where it's at, so it's not that big of a deal, but I would have liked to have seen an earlier detent. But all in all, great knife. Great cutter, you know, for the most part, it cuts pretty good. The ergos are great. The action's good. The clip works great. I mean, a lot of things going for this knife. I do like it. I think it feels very well made. You can probably get them for a pretty good price. I'm going to try to link it below. So I think it's top notch. I think it's a great knife. And if you're looking, this style fits you, man, get it, man, because it's an awesome knife. Now, let's just look at it really quick next to a couple other Twosuns. We got the Twosun TS177 and then the Twosun 328, both Tepe designs. Now, you can see it is, it feels smaller, but they're about the same length. This one is definitely longer. Now, I'm going to do a head-to-head between these two. I know everybody's wanting to know which one's better, so we will have a versus video coming up between these two Tepe knives. Now, this knife, the Nautilus, is basically a Griptilian size knife. Spyderco PM2, you know, knives of that length. So if you're looking or wanting to know the size of it, that's basically the size. It's a regular full-size knife. So there you guys go. I think the knife's awesome. And I also like the tool look of it. Titanium, the with the steel, they match. All the hardware like just kind of blends together, you know, has a real metallic tool look to it, and I like that. So there you guys go. I love you guys. Ed, thank you, brother. Peace.